of Nigeria will not, yes, you heard me right, will not be part of the FIFA World Cup coming up in the Americas, Canada, United States of America, and Mexico. In the final playoff in Africa, out there in Rabat, Morocco, last night, it was 90 minutes of 1-1, and of course another 30 minutes of no goal scored, so they entered into penalty shootout, and it ended 4-3 at the end of the shootout, ensuring that the team from Congo, yes, Congo DR, emerged as the team that will be going into the intercontinental playoff final coming up March next year. It's really, really sad, but we'll take an X-ray to look at what actually happened. A lot of people believe that without Victor Osimhen, there is no Super Eagles of Nigeria. And let's start from that point, Mike. Last night, we saw Victor Osimhen play in the first half. He didn't come out of the dressing room for the second half of hostilities, and thereafter, it looked as if the Super Eagles of Nigeria that was actually in the game in the first half disappeared completely, because all of the second 45 minutes, the Super Eagles were playing under pressure from their own defense line. The Congolese were running rings around them, and it continued in the extra time as well. The Congolese had dominance for at least 75 minutes of that encounter. The Super Eagles were just, contending with just defending, and we must say kudos to the defenders, because all of these 75 minutes did not produce a goal. But there was a major slip in defense caused by captain of the side, what's his name now, Wilfred Ndidi, who ensured that equalizer after Nigeria scored in the third minute through Frank Onyeka.
I think it's quite a terrible display from the Super Eagles last night. And talking about Victor Osimhen not coming out of the dressing room, it really affected the game plan of the Super Eagles. And at that point, you begin to wonder why the coach has to do that alteration from the squad that won 4-1 against Gabon, because I think going with two-man up front would have given Victor Osimhen a bit of freedom to relax a bit, not chasing the ball from every angle. He decided to make two alterations, all right, in the lineup against Gabon, bringing in Frank Onyeka and then introducing Shemilogo Ajayi. That utterly, distorted the first 11 that he used against Gabon. Then Victor Osimhen was used as the, lone man up front, and leaving the bulk of the work for him up front, which for me, immediately I saw that lineup and that formation, I wasn't too comfortable about it. Now, distorting the defense line that was so good against, Gabon, is one thing I don't understand. Taking Frederick, that has been very exceptional, back to pair Shemilogo Ajayi alongside Kelvin Bassey, it didn't really work. So for me, I think I want to say that the coach committed a little blunder, because you don't change winning teams. Nobody does that. No coach does that. You can't be experimenting at that crucial stage where the World Cup ticket is at stake. You try to do some experiment. No, I said it that immediately the team fired out and I saw the game formation. Victor Osimhen was the lone striker. I knew it that it was going to be, a disaster, because the defenders of DR Congo, they will try to mark Victor Osimhen, mark him out of the game. But if he had played with two strikers up front, maybe Akko Adams might just be, doing the damage, while the defenders of DR Congo try to hold down Victor Osimhen. Akko Adams can do the damage. So for me, I think it was so terrible for the Super Eagles that throughout the course of the game, especially in the second half and even the extra time, DR Congo were asking much of the question. In fact, they pressured the Super Eagles, forcing the coach to do some substitution that were uncalled for. And at that point, I just know that it is out of the reach of the Super Eagles. So Victor Osimhen without the Super Eagles, rather without Victor Osimhen, seems very, very shaky.
Talking about Victor Osimhen, it looks to me like Victor Osimhen is in the like of George Oponwea of Cameroon, of Liberia. We equally have, what's his name now? Andrei Shevchenko of Russia. These are top players, top marksmen for their respective countries, play good football, score goals for their respective countries. but didn't have the luck, do I say, the fortune of going to the FIFA World Cup. I talked about Shevchenko, remember him, of Russia, and there's Openwear. I remember Openwear. It was in Port Harcourt, Nigeria, where the Super Eagles beat them by, I think, 3-0 in Port Harcourt here and ended their World Cup dreams. Now we have Victor Osimhen that is about 26. By the time the next World Cup comes around, he will be 30, and I doubt whether he will still be fit enough to play. So it looks like Victor Osimhen is same as Liberia Openwear and Andrei Shevchenko among top marksmen in the world who did not have the luck of going to play at the top level where they belong, which is the FIFA World Cup.
It's looking likely that is what the future might hold for Victor Osimhen if our football administrators fail to do the needful by starting early preparation. If you want to go to the World Cup, you don't just wait until a few months before a World Cup qualification before you start experimenting which coach is good and which coach is not good. Within the...
Yes, that reminds me, I was going to get to the part, what do we hold responsible, what could be responsible for the ouster of the Super Eagles from the World Cup. We were playing a relatively very weak group where there was Zimbabwe, weak group where there was Lesotho, and we should have been one of the first countries to qualify outrightly in our group, but we messed up with our first 4 games in the group, and by the time we started thinking of coming back, it was too late. And one of the reasons, like you alluded, is the fact that we had 3 coaches that were sacked within the qualifier of the same season in the World Cup qualification series. There was General initially, he was sacked. There was Austin Eguavon.
Joseph Pissarro, I meant to say.
Sorry, Pissarro, I meant to say at the start. There was Pissarro first, then Eguavon, Fini Di George, and now we had Eric Chell. So 3 coaches have suffered the fate of being sacked in the same qualification race. It looked as if the Nigerian Football Federation didn't have a clear idea of who they wanted to prosecute the World Cup. And we knew we were going to play the World Cup 4 years ago.
And that is why I said that, our football administrators, they should be held responsible rather for this anomaly. It's quite disappointing, embarrassing, and heartbreaking one for Nigerian football footballers at large. You go online, you see the outcry, the wailing is too much. And I think for me, NFF should take full responsibility about the host of the Super Eagles not making it to the World Cup come next year, because you don't do coaching experiments at such a period, as such sensitive period of qualification of the World Cup. You don't do that. How can you be experimenting 3 coaches within the period of just few months, in World Cup qualification? Nobody does that. And I knew it at that point that we were in danger. Now, you take a look at Joseph Pissarro, who started the poor run, played about 2 games, winning, drawing 2 of the games. Then Fini Di George came in, played 2, lost 1, drew 1, and that is where the big issue began. 4 games without, maximum even 5 points, and that is where the problem set in. They began to experiment. Before bringing Eric Chell, it was too late. There was nothing the young man could do, although he did his best. It's just that his best weren't good enough because he was let down by, players who failed to live up to the expectation. When it matters most, you expect them to bring in their A game and bring that high level of professionalism, but then, quite disappointing, they let themselves down, they let Nigerians down by not making it to the World Cup. So I think NFF should be, held responsible for the pains and the, disaster that so many Nigerians are going through right now because of the Super Eagles' failure to make it to the World Cup next year.
The Super Eagles of Nigeria will not be at the FIFA World Cup consecutively now. They were not there at the last World Cup in 2022, and now we will be missing out on the 2026 edition of the World Cup. In fact, this will be the 3rd time Nigeria will not be at the World Cup, if you remember. We were not there, I think, in 2016 as well. So the Super Eagles of Nigeria not going to be at the World Cup consecutively, and this looking Very sad. Let me say it here, Mike. This is a World Cup of nearly 50 countries. Are you now saying 48 countries will be at the FIFA World Cup for next year, 48 to be specific? But will it be right to say that the Super Eagles of Nigeria is not among the top 50 teams, best 50 teams in the world right now? Because 48 of these teams will be going to the World Cup. And I find it difficult to believe that we cannot qualify among the best 48 teams right now in the world of football, that Nigeria is not one of the top teams. I remember in 1994 when we went to the first FIFA World Cup, Nigeria came out 5th top football playing nation in the world. And now we are not among the first 50 teams, that best 50 teams in the world.
That is how terrible our football has gone down the drain in the last 10 years right now. And the evidence is very clear. It is very, very clear that the Super Eagles, they are not doing pretty well. You talk about the home Eagles, nowhere to be found. You talk about the under-23 zeros. You talk about the under-17, nothing to write home about. And I think this is how terrible football administrators has brought the game to disrepute so far, because you can't say that Nigeria is a footballing nation. They are African, soccer giants, and then we can't, make it to the World Cup back to back again. 8 good years. We had luxury of time to have prepared for this World Cup qualification. The last World Cup in 2022 that we couldn't attend should have been an eye-opener for our administrators to say, okay, let's take it upon ourselves. Let us redeem ourselves. For Nigeria not going to the World Cup, it behoves on us to start preparation in earnest. So for me, it is that bad that the Super Eagles Nigeria are not among even the best 50 nations, footballing nation in the world. And we call ourselves Giant of Africa. No? And we were knocked out by a team that never qualified for the World Cup in the last 50-something years, because this DR Congo, when they qualified for the World Cup, was when they were called Zaire, 1974, down the line. How many years? And the Super Eagles, we are the 4th highest African team to have played the World Cup. A record 6 times. All right? But since then, down till now, we have never qualified. Missing out on 2 straight World Cups, that is terrible, and that is how bad football has gone so far. Not just the Super Eagles, like I mentioned, other cadres of Nigerian national team, the same, nowhere to be found. I think the only thing we can take positive is the Super Falcons. Away from that.
Okay, you've talked about the footballers, the federation being to be held responsible for Nigeria's ouster. What of the role of the footballers themselves? There is UEFA's top best player, in goal scorer right now, UEFA Champions League highest goal scorer right now in the team, and that person is Victor Osimhen. There is Ademola Lookman, of course, African Player of the Year, in the squad as well. There are some other, notable players, what's his name, Alex Iwobi, mentioned. There are top stars around this team. What role did the players contribute to the team being pushed out of the FIFA World Cup for next year?
I think the players, their own role is also something to talk about, because you can't be playing for top clubs in Europe, playing week in, week out for your club side out there in Europe, giving all your best. When you come down to the national team, you find it very difficult to replicate the same fine form. We watch you week in, week out there in the European club side. So I think the players as well must also share some of the blame as well. But then you just have to immune some of the players are out of that equation, like Victor Osimhen has been giving it all, 100%, both for club and country. And I think that is the man that you can take away from that team, take away the blame from that team. Then the younger Benjamin, because I find it very difficult that Alex Iwobi, you see him putting up an impressive outing for Fulham out there in the English Premier League, the toughest league in the world, the best ranked league in the world. But then when it comes to the national team, Alex Iwobi doesn't replicate such fan form that we see him. He struggled to break, to break defense with his passes. You can see some of the goals that we scored. In fact, the last 8 goals that we scored in the last 2 games that we played, prior to yesterday's game against DR Congo, Alex Iwobi had not made a single assist, and as a midfielder, that is how bad it is. Even defenders are giving assists. Defensive midfielders giving assists, but Alex Iwobi, who's supposed to be the chief creator in the middle of the park, he has not registered any single assist, and that is how bad it is. Lukman Ademola, I think his club side, problem has also affected his performance for the national team so far for this season, and that is why I question his inclusion in the starting lineup in the last 2 games right now. You see him coming in, failing to make any good impact. So in as much as the bulk of the blame should lie on our football administrators, that is the NFF, I think the players as well need to share in that blame, because they also know what is at stake. It is to their own good if they get to the World Cup. You can't have such glorious opportunity. Twice you lose a penalty, twice the goalkeeper brought us back to life.
Well, we'll just get that to that part of the penalty shootout last night at Rabat, Morocco, where the Super Eagles of Nigeria were ousted from the FIFA World Cup via the knockout rule of penalties, the luxury of penalties. We'll look at how that penalty was taken and what could be responsible for the woeful penalty miss by the Nigerian Super Eagles. That will be shortly. Super Eagles of Nigeria have crashed out of the FIFA World Cup coming up next year. But we'll explain how and what happened to the Super Eagles at the match he played last night in Rabat, Morocco, in the continental playoff game between Nigeria and Congo. It was 1-1 at full time, and at the end of extra time, no goal was scored. It went into penalty kicks, 5 penalty kicks each, and the Congolese scored 4, while the Super Eagles managed to score 3 of their own, 2 of the penalty kicks. Mike, let's look at the penalty kicks. It looks very woeful. Calvin Bassey missed his very first kick. In fact, Nigeria missed their first 2 kicks in this encounter. Somehow, Wambali, that had been the cause of concern to most Nigerian football players, recovered well enough in the penalty shootout and saved 2, and it was parity, 2-2. But thereafter, we came and lost the third kick, and the Congolese scored, and that was it. It looks very woeful that we can. It looks as if we did not prepare for penalties. I saw the French coach of Congo, make a last-minute change. He changed his goalkeeper that was in the encounter and brought in the substitute goalkeeper who clearly looked good on penalty kick. He saved about 2 or 3 of the sports kick of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. But Nigerians, for the Super Eagles, the way we kicked the penalties, it looks as if we were not prepared for a penalty kick at all. What is your take on the way the Super Eagles were involved in those sports kicks?
I think I was quite disappointed with the players. Taking a look at it, prior to the final whistle leading to the penalty, you saw the Zebra making some tactical changes that will, point the direction to which they were heading to. You knew it that the game was heading to penalty, and needed to do some sensible tactical substitution at that point in time, knowing fully well that it's about to head into the penalties. Now, we take a look at the changes made by Eric Chell prior to the final whistle heading into that penalty shootout. You know it clearly that it does not really have a clear plans on who were to take the penalties, because if you know who were going to take the penalties, I think few minutes, either 2 or 3 minutes before the final whistle leading to the penalty, you should be able to do your substitution. You should have been able to pen down those that were going to take the penalties, and that he did not do. Secondly, it is evidently clear that the Super Eagles squad, bulk of the players out there are not penalty specialists, and that is why you saw defenders, stepping up to take penalties. You don't do that. You don't do that in a team that has, penalty specialists. You don't allow a defender, to kickstart your penalty shootout. If you go back in memory lane, in the last African Cup of Nations, you discover that we had few penalties, and many people were shying away from to, make a such statement. He saw the final whistle. After the final whistle, he almost had some rancors against the DR Congo side, confronting one of the DR Congo, claiming that, they had to sprinkle water. He did something like water stuff like that. For me, I do not want to believe. I don't want to go with the perception that it is Voodoo that is responsible. Is it Voodoo that was responsible for them not to protect the goal that they scored in the 3rd minute of the game, that they should have held on with passion to see off the game? And you're telling me that it's Voodoo. Is it Voodoo that is responsible, that tied the leg of the Super Eagles?
Well, let's hear it from the word, from the mouth of Eric Chell, the Super Eagles head coach, about the penalty shootout and what could have affected the kicks taken by Calvin Bassey and the other players that lost in the shootout.
Did some voodoo every time. So this is why I was a little nervous after him.
Yeah. Eric, coming towards the end of the game, I could see that you were a bit frustrated with maybe some of the DR Congo staff members. Could you give us an update on what happened there?
During all the penalty session, a guy of Congo did some voodoo every time. So this is why I was a little nervous after him.
Yeah. What did you see?
Yeah, something like that, with the I don't know if it's a water or something like that, so I don't.
Quel est votre message
A coach believes that if someone pouring water, across could affect the way the penalty is being taken. We've talked about voodoo so many times, and I think he has no place in football. If we should have been playing the World Cup. We're talking about Zaire returning to the World Cup after 54 years. They were the very first country, Zaire, now Congo DRC, returning, and voodoo did not have anything to do. I remember, was it Yugoslavia beating them by 9-1 in the 1974 World Cup?
I think like I've said earlier, I don't really believe in the philosophy or the theory of voodoo in football. If there were something like that, I think this same DR Congo would have been using the voodoo to qualify for the previous World Cup. But I truly do not want to, accept that opinion. It was a total disastrous outing for the Super Eagles. He was just trying to find excuses where there is none.
Well, the man should stop looking for excuses and accept blame, because, like I said, we still had one more change to make in that encounter, and he had William Trusek, one man who has taken penalties so well for the team in the past. We saw the Congolese coach change a goalkeeper at the last minute because he knew his first choice goalkeeper was not very good at penalties, and the second choice goalkeeper did enter and, of course, made saves in that shootout. And so I think it has to do with tactical deficiency and not about voodoo. Whatever it is called here in Africa. It's only in Africa we believe so much in this, but enough of this. I'm sure in the days ahead there will be a lot of X-ray from the football house to the players to the pitch, facilities, and the attitudes of the players as well.